news, everyone.
Where are we now?
Do you have idiots on your planet?
You're obviously... It's me, Zoidberg, remember? From high school?
Hello, you're listening to The Slurmcast, a podcast for no reason. Today we will be discussing Futurama, Season 1, Episode 2. The series has landed. With your hosts, Tommy Roulette.
Hello.
Pete Woodward.
That's me.
And I'm Rick Horchie. So this episode, for me, I kind of feel like it's the second pilot where it doesn't seem like this happens too much anymore, but, you know, a lot of shows in the 70s and 80s and before that would have the pilot or two or three pilots that you'd never see, you know, when it get aired. Sometimes they'd be in a vault and somebody would release it later. And that might be the How We Met kind of episode, which was the first one, the pilot, Space Pilot 3000. And then the first episode you'd see that would air would be the one where it's like, you don't get that, backstory. It's just, here's the show. And this show...
It's kind of hard to do that.
It's doing a little bit of the, you don't see how people met, but he does introduce all the secondary characters to Fry.
Well, it feels like part two of the pilot.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's
almost
what I
like
mean.
it should have aired as an hour because it picks up right at the beginning where they're like, okay, you're the new delivery people, and there they go.
And it's more of, here's the formula of the episode where the first one, these characters are meeting, and the story is them meeting, where now it's like, here's the kind of adventures they're going to go on. Here's what the show is going to be about. Here's the secondary characters, but, this is what a regular episode will feel like.
It actually was never intended to be the second episode.
What was it?
Oh,
supposed
My
to
Three
be?
Sons, right? Something like that?
Yeah, My Three Sons was supposed to be the original episode.
Have
it
you
was
been
gonna
looking
be,
at the Infosphere or whatever it's called, the Futurama Wiki?
yes, it's the Infosphere.
There's a lot of cool stuff on there.
It's anyone can edit it, so...
Oh, really? It's one of those?
I don't know. We could try later and edit it, add a podcast page to it. But yeah, it says it was intended to be My Three Sons Have Landed, which was moved to slot 7 in the
Which one was
first season,
My Three
so-
Sons? What was that about? Was that the one where they...
People will have to tune in and find out, right?
You
We'll
could just tell
get
me.
there.
Or you could
It's
watch
been
it.
on for years. Just tell me in one sentence which episode it was. Is it the one where he drinks the guy? Is that it? It is. I think it is.
Is it? I don't know. I don't remember.
You're going to start spoiler rage like already on episode 2.
This is not The Wire or Breaking Bad.
Well, you're spoiling it for
Podcast.
me
No,
because I've
everyone has-
forgotten all of this
Well,
stuff.
I'm not spoiling
You're right.
anything.
You're right. It is. It's the drinking.
So
Drinks the Emperor.
right off the bat, Hermes comes in. Hi, Hermes. And I always liked him. It was an interesting character choice. But the quick little aside joke that really, really tickled me was he's carrying this crate the size of a refrigerator. It was someone left this in the slot last night.
Yeah, I like that
Yes.
too. Which I remember like watching this, to get ready for the show. It was one of those jokes where I'm like, how funny was that supposed to be? Was that like just for you to go like, huh? Or,
I think they just cram it full.
yeah.
Like
It's the subtle jokes that are the best in the TV show.
You probably saw this. One of the trivia things about this episode, with introducing all the characters, about Hermes was, I believe that's Phil Lamar, right, from Mad TV?
Correct.
He originally recorded the first 7 episodes without the accent. He wasn't going to be Jamaican, and then they had to go back and re-record everything. I don't know anything more about that, why they changed that.
That's an interesting fact.
Yes, isn't it?
It is.
Are you interested?
I'm very interested.
Are you
Yes.
are you experienced?
Would you call it a tale of interest?
Now you're getting too far ahead of everything in this series.
Fry burns his hair off and becomes Lars, and then he goes back in time and
You're making this up.
So,
he has a goatee.
before when you meet Hermes, they have the scene at the beginning with the tape for Planet Express. It's the videotape. They put it in the VCR plus.
Yeah.
And that, at the time in 1999, there was, TiVo hadn't really come out yet. It was just starting, I don't think it was very big at that point, if even available. But
yeah, I can't
the
remember.
VCR Plus was set up to record shows, and you could put the time
Oh,
code
see,
in or
I didn't
whatever.
get that. I
Okay,
didn't
so
know. I don't
I
remember
wrote that down, but it auto-corrected to Vice plus plus in my notes.
Vice.
And I've been looking at this trying to figure out what the hell was Vice plus plus? VCR plus plus.
Plus.
Yes.
Yes.
That in 1,000 years, they only added one extra plus.
Real quick, just in case you are listening to this and you've seen Futurama a million times, or you can't quite remember what this episode is, it's the episode where they do their first delivery, which takes them to the moon, to Luna Park on the moon, and Fry, having had a childlike, fantasy about space travel and traveling to the moon back in the 20th century.
He was very excited. He was very excited to go.
Yes, exactly. He's very excited. He finds out when he gets there that everyone in the future, because it's so,
Essay.
Yeah, that they just go to the amusement park, and it's pretty meaningless and lost his magic, and he wants to get out to the real moon, get outside of the park.
And does he?
He does.
He does.
But they still,
And then a whole bunch of things ensue after that.
But they
Yeah,
cram
that's-
a whole bunch of other exposition. It's like that second half of the pilot. Like that first third of this episode is like bam, bam, bam.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
Here's
here's
Zoidberg.
Zoidberg.
Oh,
Here's
yeah.
Amy. Caffeinated bacon and baconated grapefruit, which was how many years ahead of the curve?
Yeah. I have to ask, is that a thing?
Probably.
Probably.
I
They
kind of
bacon up
want
everything.
Yeah, that's true. And they do.
And they
can
caffeinate up everything
now too.
So very likely it could be already happening.
I mean, I'm half tempted to get grapefruit and like fry it up in some bacon grease and see how it goes. I bet that would be kind of awful, probably, but I'd try it.
Yeah. But
I hate grapefruit.
Yes. The biggest thing is they
Tom
introduce
agrees. I hate
the other
grapefruit.
three main characters of the series, in Hermes, Zoidberg, and Amy. And Zoidberg is probably one of my favorite characters
Same
ever.
here, and I didn't realize until watching this how many of some of my favorite Zoidberg lines are from his first 30 seconds.
Yes.
being
Not
on the
that
show.
mouth. And there is such a thing as caffeinated bacon.
Well, there we go.
So Fry didn't have to wait 1,000 years for that, just about 15.
Oh, okay. Well, you know what? At this point, I'm sure there's caffeinated bow ties. You know what I mean? Everything is caffeinated or has
Or
bacon in it.
baconated.
Or what's the other craze that they're?
But I
I
think
guess alcohol. You could get cupcakes with booze in them now.
but
and
back around this time, like that was just when that I got back then. I was addicted to these things called Penguin Mints, which were like sugar-free,
I remember
sugar-free
Penguin Mints,
Altoids,
yes.
but they had caffeine in them, so you just eat them all day and not get coffee breath and still get like really tweaked out. And that was, I think, Water Joe came out around then. I don't even know if that's still around, but it was caffeinated water.
I remember that. Unless it wasn't real and you were just messing with me, because I don't remember that, and now I'm afraid people will think. that
No,
I just-
I think they were like, I don't know if they were a sponsor, but it became like something the Descendants were really, really into.
I would imagine that would be something they would be way into.
And by that you mean the band The Descendants, correct?
Yes, not the George Clooney movie.
Or people that descend from you.
Both of those are great too. I'm a big fan of that movie and Our Descendants, Our Ancestors. Wait, no, because we're the descendants, right? And then we'll have descendants. Well, not Tom or I, but you will.
Not anymore. I mean, I've had all the ones I'm going to have.
No, but I mean, your
here's-
daughter's children will be descendants.
Flipping the script, the professor is actually Fry's descendant, but he's way older.
Yes.
He's more geriatric.
That is a thing that
crazy.
happened on the show, and it certainly is crazy.
He also, in this
Crazy
episode,
to
talked
think
about
that a
sonic
robot would want to be
diarrhea.
a folk
So,
singer.
I have that written down. And yes. What is sonic diarrhea? How do you get that?
Or
What are the symptoms?
I think I've had it.
I'm pretty sure.
it's
I've lived
possible.
with you. You've
Yeah.
definitely had it.
Yeah.
Or it could really be interpreted so many different ways. But I need to start using that phrase more often.
I'd like to think that the Doctor from Doctor Who could give people sonic diarrhea because he has a sonic screwdriver, and that's got to be one of the functions.
I mean, yes.
I hope it has a flared base.
Speaking of secondary characters, we also meet two reoccurring characters in this second episode. One of which is one of my all-time favorite reoccurring characters. Firstly, the lesser that
John
is,
Zoidberg,
is
right? Is that who we're talking
horrible
about again?
gelatinous blob, who
Oh,
on his
yeah.
name tag or on his desk has HG blob. I'm sorry, on the package I think it was.
Yes, in the first.
Which was I love. Like okay, seeing the video with the giant bird and Fry asked Professor Farnsworth if there's really giant birds, and they do the egg gag or whatever.
Yeah.
Special effects.
That and then the blob and all this stuff. Hitchhiker's Guide, like anybody could just die at any moment. Like it's this crazy world, even though the world is like that too. But I mean, just you could just be delivering a package or tying your shoe or going to buy a soda, and the vending machine will eat you or whatever. You know what I mean? Like that's why I love that they exist in that world where it's because it's good for humor, and you can have those like needless deaths that are would be morbid otherwise, but in a comedic way. It's funny. So yeah, you have the blob.
We get it. Life is disposable
Yeah,
and cheap,
yeah.
and you don't value it.
And it
No,
always will
not
be.
at all.
I was wondering about, and again, like, I've watched almost all of these up through the second season, but it's been so long that it's basically like watching it again, new.
Right, same here.
And I remembered, from back then that Amy's like the daughter and heiress of some giant, super rich
Yes.
family.
Yes.
But
They
do
established that right away.
But they don't go into detail like Lilo's like of the Mars Wongs.
They do later. Is that what
So
you're asking?
yeah, does that come out? Like, how deeply did they go into
you
that?
meet her parents, and there's a whole episode for it.
There's several
come back.
episodes with involving her parents and just her family name in general. So we'll get to see
they
that.
become reoccurring characters, and then of course one of my favorite reoccurring characters we meet, who they don't name in this episode, but I believe they do later. Sal, the lazy guy, who in this episode doesn't do his adding the S's at the end of things like woes.
Use needs to get
yeah,
out.
you're right.
Yeah.
But just, I mean, Fry comes in and says whatever, and he's like, if I wasn't so lazy, I'd get up and punch you right now.
But is that's one of the characters where it's like, was that ported directly from The Simpsons? Because he's I mean
Because of that episode where he meets the Teamsters? And
well, yeah, I mean he's and I haven't watched The Simpsons in forever either,
Yeah.
but like the animation is already super similar,
Yeah.
but it's like did they do any of that where they take a character from they did it with Blinky in the first episode in the background of the three-eyed fish, but do they do that elsewhere throughout the series?
I feel like, without being to name it any specifically, I feel like there's characters in Futurama that are definitely inspired by, and maybe same writer, same, who knows, definitely
Bender
very
and Homer
related.
Simpson are made after the same like animated body model type.
I think,
and they make fun of that in the Futurama Simpsons crossover that they ended up doing like a couple years ago.
Who's the woman that does the voice of? She does like the the old lady in Futurama that's like, that'll cost you 10 kajiggers or whatever. Like she's a voice. She does a voice. She does a few voices on Futurama, and she does some on the Simpsons, I believe. And sometimes you can hear that crossover, and it seems like you're seeing. I feel like there's a character on The Simpsons that she voices. I think she might do the voice for Mom of Mom
Trace
Corp.
McNeely.
Is that her?
That's-
Yes,
yeah.
that's what I'm trying to think of.
She does. She's done. Yeah, that's. I assume that's who you were getting at.
Yeah, there's a few characters that she does where, whether it's intentionally or unintentionally, sounds very similar, and the characters seem kind of, she on The Simpsons she always did like the businesswoman, like that would be doing like Malibu Stacy or somebody. I don't even know.
No,
if it was-
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
I mean, Tress McNeil's been she does a bunch of voices on that. Okay, so we there's the Amy establishments. Then they go into that whole jag about cleaning Bender.
Yeah.
which I just, it's so dumb. But the part where he's just like, "Look at my head," look, and then he picks her pocket.
Yeah.
As much as I'll be the first to say that I'm not a huge Bender fan, and I'll say it a lot. That for some reason when he's doing that, I did think it was funny. If I saw it for the first time and saw that joke, yeah, I would probably think that was funny. I've seen it so many times; it's hard to gauge. Like, what would I think if I was watching this now, at 34 years old, in 2016, with because comedy changes and television changes, and it has changed a lot. And this show is, from 1999, from
17 years
17 years ago. I was just getting there. And
Which, it's jumping
a
ahead. But
million
when
years.
when they get to the honeymooners gag,
Oh, dude.
Yes, I want to talk about going to the moon.
Yeah, we'll
because
get
that is
there.
the whole point
Real
of this
quick,
episode.
real quick before we get there, I just want to say Admiral Crunch and what was
Count Duke Chocula.
Archduke Chocula.
Archduke Chocula.
Archduke Chocula, yeah. Yes.
That's it. I just wanted to
So did they address how they got to the moon so fast? Like, does the physics of the Planet Express ever come up? Because they're there in less than 10 seconds.
It's 2 seconds of fry counting, and it says on the infosphere that they would have to be going X miles per hour to do that.
400 million miles an hour in order to reach the moon.
But how are they going 4 million miles?
You learn
They
actually
do
later.
throw some of that in later. Yeah,
You learn about
it's fueled
without
by dark
spoiling it,
matter, and
yeah, the professor invents this whole technology that they use to fly as quick as they can and get around and everywhere they can, and they dive into it.
yeah. I mean, we don't want to
it's-
spoil anything. Nibbler poops it.
No.
It turns out that he went back in time and pushed Fry into the cryo thing.
Everyone, cover your ears.
Spoilers.
So, okay, they get, they're at the lunar park, and they have the mascots there. And
The show gets canceled. I moved to Georgia for 2 years. I came back to Cleveland. I'm sorry. All right. No more spoilers.
What, I lost my train of thought now. Oh,
The mascots.
the mascot. The first mascot that when Bender walks by with the beer, and he's like...
Crater
oh,
Face?
Crater Face.
It's terrifying.
And is that a mask? Is that like somebody in a costume, or is that like an actual creature? Is that like an alien?
I think it's supposed to be a mascot because his eye isn't real when he puts the beer bottle in it.
yeah.
Yeah, he never. And
And it's supposed to. His character is supposed to be pathetic, like a mascot.
But
at
so it also,
an amusement park, which I love.
in and
amusement
of
parks,
itself,
by the way.
Crater Face terrifying.
into that.
I have that in my notes. Crater Face is terrifying.
Oh yeah,
But
I didn't.
it also reminded me
I thought his voice
of,
was annoying. I didn't really.
Do you remember the McDonald's commercials?
Oh,
with
Mac at night or Mac tonight. Yeah,
And that was terrifying.
He was creepy.
Too.
Yeah,
you
Oh,
shouldn't
yeah.
have a moon head. Moon heads
Yeah.
are bad.
he had a big crescent moon head, sunglasses, and like a human body, and his face was kind of human.
no offense to any moonheads out there.
No, I have a strong anti-moonhead stance.
Oh, we're gonna get
Okay,
we're gonna get contacted by
we are
the,
strictly anti-moonheads.
We're gonna get
on this podcast.
we're gonna get tweeted at by the Anti-Moonhead Defamation League.
We are. That's the whole goal.
I donated to them last year, so I'm in the clear.
Well, that's because you were in that liberal paradise of Athens, Georgia. So here's the thing. What Luna Park reminded me of in almost every way, and I'm sure it was on purpose, was a bad, poorly executed Chuck E. Cheese. Now, this is 17 years ago. I just had to go to Chuck E. Cheese recently, and it's still just like they still have the animatronic robots. It's still terrible. It's
always-
maybe even worse.
Recently, I wanted to go in there and see what it looks like because when I was a child, Chuck E. Cheese was terrifying to me. The animatronic
Yes.
animals, I remember, I don't even think this is
One
like
time
a
I got
real,
lost in there.
a real memory,
I
but
cried.
I remember
I was,
it being 50 feet in the
19.
air.
Well, no, so
Yeah.
So the old Chuck E. Cheese was really dark and dank. I mean, it almost seemed like
It was,
a
yeah.
dive bar, or really, in the 70s and 80s, every restaurant was dark. It all looked like kind of dank, and they had bad lighting and stuff like that.
Yeah, it was left
And you
over from
go
the
in-
speakeasy days where all the
Yeah.
bars and restaurants were.
So
they
you go
tried to get
back
them as
into the
dark
game
as, you know.
room, and
I thought the purple animatronic guy. I don't know if he was the drummer. I thought he was going to eat me. I thought he was going to eat someone. But they were all creepy. The eyes were creepy, but I still liked them because I had this thing like first of all, I love Chuck E. Cheese.
Does Chuck E.
amusement
Cheese
parks-
currently have virtual skee ball yet?
No, they have regular skee ball.
But the virtual skee ball is
And that's
probably
about
not
the
too far
only-
away. I mean,
The regular skee ball is like the only palatable thing. I mean, so all I was going to get to talking about Chuck E. Cheese now is that now it's super bright and everything. I mean, and it's like walking into a casino, but for kids, and they just go insane. There's no more ball pit, but there's still lots of places to get like fecal matter shoved on stuff and pass disease from one another, and like. It's
which is why you went in
just-
the first place.
I went because I had to go to a kid's birthday.
Yeah.
And it was terrifying.
I'm glad you didn't go because you work there.
No, I couldn't go. You wouldn't pay me to go there. Like it's a matter of satisfying my daughter's social needs.
You know how creepy it would be if you and I just walked into Chuck E. Cheese.
We're not
when-
allowed to.
when-
You can't come.
I
in
don't
there
think so. Yeah, I don't.
without a kid. I know because I tried. No, I didn't. I was told though.
Sir, please get out of the ball pit.
What if we dressed up like kids, but we dressed up like 40s sailor outfit kids that from like Donald Duck or you
Well,
know.
so they,
Donald Duck
with like big lollipops and
with
we're
no
like,
pants on.
a little sailor outfit, a hat, no pants on. I'm a tiny child.
Well, so the other thing is,
with the shirt that says Rock Band from 30 Rock when Bulgy Eyes Magoo
I have absolutely no idea what you're talking about right now.
when Steve Buscemi has dressed
when
up
he-
as the teenager and goes into the high school and he has a t-shirt that
he's
says
doing a 21 Jump Street.
Yeah.
So the other thing about modern Chuck E. Cheese is like, you know how you'd carry your sweaty palm full of tickets up to the counter and
Yes.
now they have a machine that you have to feed them in to get a voucher.
Okay.
Like when you go to Vegas, they give you the voucher.
Yeah.
thing.
Right.
So it's like that in reverse. But then you'll get people, I don't know, they've got bags and bags of them, and they'll just be feeding stuff in for like 20 minutes. They've got just piles of it, just feeding it into this machine and feeding it in. And it's still, the exchange rate is like half a cent to a ticket. But they'll come out with like a voucher for $20. And you're like, what the hell are you people doing? I don't know how you could be there long enough to amass that much stuff. And
That's
then-
got to be expensive.
Oh my God, it's just awful. So seeing, 1,000 years from now, Chuck E. Cheese on the moon was just awful. It was so terrible.
The animatronic gophers that they had.
and the pirates.
that was great.
Whalers
that
on the
was a
moon.
reference to all the animatronic stuff was good references to old Disney World, old Disneyland.
And yet the one new Bender from high school.
that was great. Which doesn't make sense because why would this kind of robot know him? And then we also
Though
find out that Bender. Well, we find out about Bender's past, and it doesn't. It's not cohesive. It doesn't.
It's a
line up with it.
cartoon.
But then they do it later, and they met. Well,
We can
no,
talk
but that
about
show has
that.
tried to do that, and then there's a couple
Right.
times where they blatantly threw that out the window.
But you're spoiling things. Let's talk about
I
that
know
when
it's
it
for
gets
the
to
let's
that
talk
point.
about
It's for
this
the joke.
episode.
No, that's why I cut myself off. That
This-
one, I'm like, all right, I'll.
This has my probably my favorite Bender lines in it, where he gets kicked out of the park,
Oh.
and he said he's going to go start his own park with
you, me, our
hookers
friend
and blackjack,
Dan Holohan,
or blackjack
and a couple
hookers,
other people
specifically.
That's one of our, like I was saying in the first one, in the first episode. We have like a Futurama shorthand, and that's one of them. Is sometimes it could just be the last couple words of that line or the first couple, indicating whatever we're talking about, or if if we're doing something and we're like, oh, we're not going to do that, we're going to do this, and Tom would say, I'm going to go start my own podcast with blackjack. And
one of the
hookers.
ideas for the names I wanted to do was we're going to start our own podcast with blackjack and hookers. But
And
that
then
was
the
just
rest-
a little bit too long.
And then it's the rest of the lines from the rest of the episode.
Yes. But yeah, no. As I said in the last time, Bender is not one of my favorite characters, but God, he just has certain lines that sometimes still to this day I'm like, every time I see him, I chuckle.
He sucks. That show sucks. I'm done with this podcast.
Fry, they get to the moon. It's this Chuck E. Cheese, I guess, weird park, kind of like a crappy Disney World / Chuck E. Cheese. And Fry just wants to see the real moon. And everyone else thinks he's ridiculous because it's boring and it's just nothing, rocks.
I mean,
and
yeah,
everything.
it would be like I don't know. I guess there's not an analogy that I thought of or could think of in the time that I stuttered, hoping I would come up with one. Anyways, you were saying.
Anyways, I was saying. So while they're out doing that, a whole sub-storyline happens with Amy dropping the keys in the package that they're delivering to the moon, which turns out to be a claw machine, animals, stuff you win a claw machine.
I love claw machines.
So she spends trying to win back the keys out of the claw machine, and another great Bender line says, "Oh, it's just like how you make love: left, down, rotate 62 degrees, engage rotor." And
I know how to make love.
Yes, and that's just great because that's just what it's like.
That's my favorite thing about that show is, just some of the lines like that are, we've all heard, seen this episode a million times, heard that line a million times, but I can just still appreciate that.
1,000 years in the future, and it's like 1950s carny technology.
Yes. And that's the thing I like that, they have that mix like we talked about last time.
Until they get busted by the Moon Patrol. Which is, I just liked because it's a callback to the video game Moon Patrol.
Yes.
You look perplexed. There was a great video game, like an arcade style game, where you had to go and put quarters into it, called Moon Patrol.
I don't remember that.
Well, that was a thing.
Look it up.
Was it released on the Atari later, or
I think so.
No, I don't remember.
It was
I
a
had,
side to side
300
scroller.
Atari
You had to
games.
like bounce in a lunar doom buggy and shoot missiles and stuff. It was awesome. You had a gun that shot upwards and a gun that shot forwards.
No, I don't remember that.
Jaunty little theme.
The other video game at Luna Park, Mortal Cooperation, but it's with a K instead of Mortal Kombat.
I missed that one. I knew there'd be stuff in the background with that, and it went
General
by too quick.
Neutral Pack Person, Dodecapede, and then of course there's
I didn't look at any of those in
skee
the
ball,
background.
virtual skee ball, and virtual skee ball.
So is that something that's getting programmed into the Oculus Rift now? Like, is that...
You know what? That's one of the things where I'm like, sometimes like I'm getting old because like some of this technology that they're talking about now, I have no idea anything about it or that it exists, and it's kind of mind-boggling.
Mind-boggling.
Mind-boggling. Half this technology that is on Futurama is probably 10 times better already.
Oh, yeah.
Currently.
Yeah.
Well, it's just like Star Trek, not even the original series, but the Next Generation. There's a lot of stuff on there that we've improved upon, like android brothers aren't evil anymore. They don't come back and try to take over the ship. Now they're all programmed to be good.
Something that really surprised me was how quickly Fry formulated and executed a successful plan to break off of the track that the moon buggy was going on, where he just grabs a harpoon, pops it off the track, and
that's
goes.
one
Like,
of
that
those,
seems
like-
beyond Fry's capability.
He, as much as he's like the biggest goober, character, he has his moments where he does like a cool kind of Bart-esque kind of like, and he pulls
But
something off
I
or whatever.
fully expected it to throw that harpoon down and just have it stop.
That's
Like,
what
that
usually
was-
happens. And
Yeah.
They needed a way to get him off the track, and I guess that was just the easiest way for them to write to do it. I don't know.
My favorite of everything about this show for every episode, the reason I watched it over and over again is is Fry's not his character, his lines. As much as Zoidberg has some of the best lines and a couple of the other characters do, his dumb guy moments are some of the best. I can't think of another character that is that same guy that has better lines that the writers behind this came up with. One of my favorite ones from this episode was Leela's like, if everybody's done being stupid, and Fry's like, I had more, and then just cut there. But that's just him like constantly, like every other sentence is some great. I can't think
Line, some great line. He has some great lines.
So the part that we skipped over was when they have like the animatronic tour of what happened to the moon, and they used the honeymooners as the reason that they got there, like, and completely erased all of the domestic violence vitriol out of the Jackie Gleason character. It made it seem like a really one of these days, Alice, bang, pow, to the moon.
For those of you young folks out there, because we're here to educate and inform on this podcast.
The only reason we are doing this.
Earlier, at the like a couple lines before that, the announcer at the park or at the beginning of that ride says something to the effect of, "Nobody knows how man first really got to the moon, but our Fungineers have a pretty good idea." Which Fungineers was based on the Imagineers from Disney World,
right?
Who I think are the real heroes of today. By the way, I love amusement parks. I really love them because I'm always 7 and I like theme restaurants, and I think the world would be a lot better if it was just a big amusement park. But anyways.
You probably need to go to Chuck E. Cheese and you'll get cured of that.
That's Dave and
Clockwork Orange
Buster's.
styles.
I just go to Dave and Buster's. It's
not
but
the
it's so
same.
boring. That's the like I want to walk into Dave and Buster's and I want like the
hookers and blackjack.
Well, did that? I just go to the Horseshoe Casino at downtown Cleveland.
It's not called the Horseshoe anymore.
Send me a special membership or whatever
It's
for
the Jack.
Dropping your name. I want like Dave and Buster's. I would be so much more into, like, people go there for the games and the food and the beer and stuff. If, like, you walked in, if the game sucked and the food was terrible, but the entrance was shaped like a mouth or something, and then, like, all the lamps, like, lit up and talked or something, you know what I mean? Like, that kind of stuff. Like, I like, when I was, like, 5, and you would go somewhere, and it could just be, like, a little thing did something that it wasn't supposed to. And as an adult, I've been to Disney World twice. Well, as a teenager and as an adult. And I probably get more joy out of it than a lot of kids who are super boring and should try to enjoy life more, kids. Anyways. So there was a show called The Honeymooners in the...
we still have not
That's a really long
educated.
prologue. I thought you were going to
the
Fungineers.
viewers. We already talked about all of this.
No,
Go look up the honeymooners on Wikipedia. That's it.
All right,
Ralph
I guess,
Cramden.
All right, look,
Jackie
kids,
Gleason.
Look, kids, the joke's lost to you. Just, you know what? Just accept it. There's new shows. You'll get those jokes and those references.
It's like the Flintstones, which is still probably too old for people to be listening to this.
Yeah, I don't.
Because the
I don't know
Flintstones
they
was
show
just
the
an
Flintstones
animated
anymore. Boomerang.
Boomerang. The Eddie Murphy movie?
No, that's Bowfinger. But I've said
No,
that
he had
too.
a movie called Boomerang too.
He did.
Yeah.
Probably.
Is that how they got to the moon?
No, there was something involving fat astronauts.
How would you get to the moon by boomerang?
No,
You'd
I
just
was
be shot around the moon and
I was referencing something where I jumped to the third step without bringing you guys in for the first and second step. You know, one of those. I was saying
right.
did the Fungineers imagine that the first astronauts rode a boomerang because of that movie, and then they show Eddie Murphy?
I don't think it had anything to do
But
with that.
it didn't. I was there. I was in my head on that third step of what I was saying, but I didn't feel like we had time to include you guys in on it.
So you took us and our listeners on an unenjoyable trip.
Yes. You could say it was the perfect storm.
So they get off.
No, hold on.
You know what? Okay. I'm becoming so self-aware of me starting all of my sentences with "so," and it's really bothering me.
Oh,
so we need
I
to
had a
start
couple
like
ums
We need
earlier.
to start like a "so" jar.
Okay. Or an jar.
But my
or like
point was,
and listeners.
No, we can't do a stutter jar for me. That's
No,
not gonna-
listeners can then play a drinking game where every time one of us says "so," you take a drink.
it doesn't have to be. It's just starting a sentence with it. When I interject, I've been starting it with "so," and that really bothers me, and probably the 4 people listening to this. What I was going to say is,
2 of them are probably dead. By
there's
now,
that
but go
whole other part. I mean, there's like an A story, a B story, a C story, and a D story because these things keep happening. So when Fry and Leela go out into the moon.
Yeah,
the
because
moon
Fry wants to
proper.
see the moon.
They run into a moon hillbilly,
Thank you. I've been wanting to get to this because, of course,
which does a callback to the farmer with the 3 daughters joke, but they're all robots.
Yes.
yes, the Crushinator we also get introduced to is
another reoccurring
much reoccurring
character.
robot character.
Yeah.
But yes, the character, the hillbilly moon.
His hat, the
Farmer.
moon shall rise again. One
Yes.
of my favorite things on the.
So
in
there
the
must have been a
episode.
civil war or a civil
Maybe a war
against
between the moon and the
Earth.
or whatever. Yeah.
How did he get there?
He's
like the lone guy out there, and he has an oxygen dome and an oxygen
But
hat.
if you ask that, then one of my favorite moments on that episode when the crocodiles jump up with the.
I wanted to ask
that's-
about that too.
But that's perfect.
Where did they come from, and
So-
why do they have?
But that's
hoods
one of
on?
those like it's just funny, you know, like it's not.
They're wearing the
As far
Space-
as far as that
helmets,
kind
yeah.
of detail sticklerness goes, they find the original lunar lander, right? That's
Apparently.
after they jumping a little bit ahead, they find the original lunar lander. Halfway through writing it, someone pointed out to the writers that the original one, I don't actually understand this, would have been.
They used it to get back to Earth. It would have never been up there
Okay.
to begin
It
with.
was a modular system, so it flew up at the top of the rocket.
Yeah, and it came
then there was
off
the
and then
lander
landed.
part, but then the lander had a base that
That-
stayed
okay,
on the
all
moon,
right.
and the capsule that they crawled into is what they ejected
Okay.
Correct.
and
yes.
launched from the moon to get back
So-
to the Earth.
So inside the lunar lander, there's a tiny sticker there
A plaque.
that says
It's like a plaque in there.
that says Stickler Society or National Stickler Society or something like that. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah,
Tom, did you see
it
that?
said
Like paid for by the
returned to original area by the Sticklers Society.
Historical
Or-
Stickler Society.
Yes,
there
correct.
it is.
Yes.
So, anyways, they meet the hillbilly guy. He's got the 3 robot daughters.
I have to wonder again with the Simpsons crossover: is he some long ago
Cletus?
descendant of Cletus?
Yeah, maybe.
Then
One could
we
wonder.
could hope. You could see that, right?
No, that's stupid. Pete, that's stupid. You're stupid.
Well, Cletus would have. I mean, he did
His bloodline would have died out
Reproduce.
long ago.
prolifically. I mean,
Bobby
if you
Sue,
follow, again,
Cynthia.
referencing
Randy.
Idiocracy again, so we're at 2 for 2 for that. That was the whole point, was that the exponential reproduction of the less intelligently inclined,
Yes.
we'll say,
Yeah.
is what
Lower IQ,
swallowed the
it's
world
fine, it
whole.
happens.
So, does this guy come from Cletus? Because Cletus very potentially could have been the Genghis Khan of the late 90s.
Yeah.
And he's obviously sterile because he can only have robot daughters. So
Maybe he
has
just
no real
doesn't.
daughters
Maybe he
of
just
his
doesn't
own.
have a wife to have real robot or regular daughters with.
That character comes back too, and he has one of my favorite moments in this episode where he takes his hat off when he's mad and steps on it, and then later gets mad again and does the hillbilly like, "Oh, consarn it, dear dag nabbit," and takes his helmet off. Jumps
and
up
then he
down
starts
on it.
suffocating.
Yeah, I remember seeing that episode like around that time that it came out, and that was so like now. I'm sure there's a lot of jokes on there that don't hold up as much, but that was great back then. I still stand by a lot of the Fry lines and the Zoidberg lines as just being, if you see them a million times, if you're 17 and you see the show for the first time now, or if you're our age and you see it for the first time now, like some of those lines to me are golden. Like you can't. Genius. Like
Well, if it's possible, and it's following that same,
because it's my type of humor. I mean,
that same model of Homer Simpson, like Zoidberg
Yes.
is almost
the classic Homer lines,
almost
from
mean
season,
and
like,
somewhat
3
competent.
through
At
10.
least he has an air of confidence in this that I think he loses later on and just becomes way more
It's
clownish.
Like all the characters, you meet them, they're kind of like
yeah. But the thing that gets going back to Bender getting cleaned at the beginning of the episode with the magnets.
Oh,
Or no,
yeah.
it wasn't when he was cleaned. It was with the souvenirs.
At
souvenirs
moon
and the
veneers.
Another one of my favorite reoccurring themes that happens
Yeah.
in the show with Bender is his
That's part of the continuity for him is that he
correct. He has the desire to become a folk singer, and it comes out when he is, how would you put it?
has a magnet on his
Magnetized.
head.
Yeah, magnetized or
near a magnet or
near a
whatever.
magnet.
But like a refrigerator magnet gets
Yeah.
stuck on his head, and then he just loses it. So at the end, at the very end of the episode, he starts singing "Coming Around the Mountain." Like at that point, that song is like 1,200 years old or however long. Like that's from the 1800s, isn't it?
It's got to be my thought.
It was
on
the
that,
getting the rights for certain
right.
songs,
That's like a free use songs.
It's public domain,
Free use
so they
folk
just play
it.
songs.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, what
like
song
they
should we
couldn't do
use?
Joan Baez or whatever. Like
They could have if she was cool.
yeah.
Guys, this was
Stupid.
like the second episode in the first season.
Stupid icon trying to.
Like, they
make
got
a
Leonard
living off of
Nimoy to
her.
do a voice. He was cool.
Well, I mean, he was cool. He wrote a song about Bilbo
Bilbo
Baggins.
Baggins, right?
He's beyond cool.
It's
There's
for-
a word that's better than cool that hasn't been invented yet. That 100 years from now, or 1,000 years from now, they'll come up with and
Do they use it
they'll
on the
use
show?
it to describe
They-
Leonard
they
Nimoy.
should.
Oh, Amy does. Amy probably. Yeah, that's another thing. Meeting her and they show that right away. Two things. She uses modern slang for that time period, and she's kind of the only character that does it. But you get that they throw it in there. It's a little cute detail, and then she gets angry and curses in whatever her language of national descent is, which I don't know what nationality Amy Wong is.
Do they talk about that later on?
They
too,
do.
Or she's Marsish.
Well,
She's
she was born on Mars.
She's a Martian.
She's Martian.
She's a Martian.
But I mean, her
Or she's
her-
like
Oh,
like
here we go.
Earthican national,
like Mandarin Chinese via Mars or something.
It's
Yeah.
kind of funny. I mean, okay, so
her
without
racial descent.
yeah, okay, that works.
Gotta bring race up again, right, Horchie?
I don't think I want to do this podcast unless we spend at least 20 minutes every episode uncomfortably and probably misguidedly talking about race.
So, damn it.
And
There were no, as far as I could see, references to Slurm in this episode.
I
look
thought
for it.
about that
Yeah,
after I
didn't
finished
think
watching.
about
I
it.
was like, I wanted to do like a Slurm reference every
that's a
podcast
good
where we
idea.
were like, okay, here's where Slurm was. Yeah, there was none in this one.
There was one poster that was all alien writing, and I'm not going to go and translate that.
In
but
this episode, are you
I
talking
think,
about?
yeah, it was in Luna Park.
I can tell you what it.
Maybe it
says
was just
here.
a warning sign or something, but there's definitely
It says
one.
tasty human burgers.
Is that burgers for humans or burgers made of humans?
Just says tasty human burgers. So
Like how to serve man?
it could be burgers for humans, or it
That
could
are
be
tasty.
human-made burgers, or human.
Burgers made of humans.
Right. We don't know.
Oh. Lexical ambiguity.
There was one little trivial thing or trivia knowledge factoid that I wanted to share really quickly, since we all love Dr. Zoidberg so much, is that his name Zoid came from a video game that David X. Cohen worked on for Apple for about 3 or 4 years. He worked on this game, and I don't know if the
believe it
game
was
was
for
called
the
Zoid.
Apple II.
Apple II. I think the name, or I think the game might have been called Zoid, or character was. I can't remember. But it never came out. The game was never completed, and that was just he picked this character that's supposed to be a big failure, and gave him a name from something a project of his that was a failure.
Just pick
I
a
like
mouth.
that. Oh, what is young lady when he calls Fry young lady. When he says of course the upside down human anatomy poster is just one of my favorite things, in his office.
That's his character was kind of based off of the fact that on Star Trek, Bones would constantly work on like non-human patients, and it kind of was the idea was like, what if the humans were worked on by a non-human patient?
How would they
or
feel?
Doctor,
Yeah.
how would they feel? And Zoidberg definitely is an expert in humans.
when he's like, when he tells him, he's like, I only have one mouth, and he's like, and he like pulls out a little piece of paper out of his. Yeah, I feel bad. I wish I was worried if like I wanted to write down just everything that Zoidberg said in that 2 minutes or less or whatever, but I'm like, then I'll just sit here just saying my favorite Zoidberg lines.
Is his facial design just supposed to be general crustacean, or is it supposed to be a call
That's
to
a good
Cthulhu?
question. I don't know what that. That is a really good question. I wonder.
He alludes to being a crab. I think their species is related to like an earth crab. Because when Fry walks back out of his office, he's like, "Doctor said I'm healthy as a clam." So there's always the reference to like earth sea creatures according to his plan.
Yeah.
It's the gag about him wearing sandals.
Yeah, and then he does for the rest of the series. I wonder if that was like, this is a joke that we're doing and didn't consider like that's going to be part of his costume now, you know.
The other thing, as far as jokes, recurring jokes from the pilot, is the professor talking about being already in his pajamas, which was supposed to be used more and more, but I don't think he ever says it through the rest of the series, and he's always in the same outfit. So he's constantly in his pajamas. They just kind of dropped that whole...
I think that makes sense for his character, though. You know, he's 1,000,000 years old. He has...
Do you know how many of these episodes they made? Like, what was the first series order? So they did the pilot. It got picked up. How many episodes did they make where they had, you know...
Oh, I don't know.
I'd imagine
Yeah,
they
I know what you
wrote
mean.
5 or 6 all together.
I don't know.
Season 1 is basically based off of 13 episodes.
Okay.
But basically they get... there's roughly like 8, 9, 10, somewhere around there that was considered like it was a mid-season replacement. So they only had half the season. So they started, I think it's the episode where they go to Mars University might be like considered the second season, but it's still within the first season.
Yeah. Like, so the second batch of episodes that they wrote, like they broke a bunch of stories and took them out from there.
Right. And, you know, apparently this second episode was never even supposed to air as the second episode originally, and things were replaced and moved, and so we'll find out, I guess, if other episodes were supposed to be, you know, separate orders, which is kind of weird because it's always up to the network to decide what order and what episodes they want to go in, and sometimes that ruins show. Look at Firefly; they kind of ruined that by
There was a
putting
show also on,
episodes out.
Yeah,
also
it did.
on Fox.
Freaks and Geeks. Freaks and Geeks did that. They screwed him over.
There was a show called Keen Eddie that was on Fox for one season, and it was great. It was right around the same time, like 99, 2000, maybe a little bit later, but
King Eddie.
Keen, Keen, and it was a
Kee.
it was
Keen,
a New York cop
Yeah.
in London. It was very, very much done in like a Guy Ritchie style, which
okay.
at that time had not been done to death.
Yeah.
Very entertaining, very funny. Had Alexi Sale from The Young Ones on it as a recurring character.
Oh.
And it had sort of this linear story. I mean, it was episodic.
Yeah.
But there was definitely beats within that season where it was like this plugs into that, plugs into that, plugs into that. And they not only did they release them all out of order when they showed them, when they finally put out a DVD box set, they didn't even put the episodes out in the correct order, and they didn't get all the music clearance for the stuff that they used, so it's just got bad filler background music. But totally worth the watch. And again, I think a case of Fox ruining something beautiful.
It happens.
For a network that took a lot of chances, they did also ruin a lot of shows too.
I blame Rupert Murdoch.
The Box Network. So this episode, I feel like, is
Guys,
a different
if you-
version.
Keeping track, drink.
What's that? Oh, wait. What was the that part of the drinking game?
If you start a sentence with so.
I'm
I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
so
What were
so
you
so
saying?
so
Studio. It's a song by Phil
so
Collins.
Sodio by Phil Collins.
So that came out around this
Oh,
time. too,
Phil
didn't it?
Collins. That would be a great parody Phil Collins a name. Phil Collins. Make every episode about, or every song about pooping.
Full Collins.
Phil Collins. I'm so tired today. I have like a low energy day. Like, my allergies are killing me.
I think this episode was fine. Probably a higher joke per minute ratio
Yes.
than the first.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
But I'm just getting chuckles so far.
Yeah. It's
like,
not one of my like 10 or 20 favorite episodes or whatever.
like,
but
should
there's
we
a
have
place
an
in my heart for
over
it.
under on at what point is it going to be like my head just opened up and Futurama let itself in? Is it going to be during the first season?
Yes. The first season has some of my. Wait, does it? I didn't
mean-
really look ahead much when
So,
we started
like-
this.
Okay,
Like-
we have to determine what we're considering the first season, because since it was a mid-season replacement, the first 9 episodes is considered airing of season 1.
Oh, really?
Then after that is season 2, and then it moves on from there. So
I thought the first season was 13 episodes. It's
it
9?
is,
But there was a gap.
as far as the network goes, the gap, because it was a mid-season replacement,
Yeah.
so therefore they didn't air. It was 9 episodes, then
Oh, and then the season of the
Yeah,
television
so
season that year was over.
it got
Oh,
picked up.
okay.
Yeah, like, so it ends basically kind of with the episode where the Beastie Boys episode.
Oh, really?
And then it
One
picks,
of my favorites.
picks up-
R.I.P. MCA.
Yeah,
In
then
two-
it picks up later with the rest of the episodes.
In
So
2016, we just say
let's say
letters.
the first 13 episodes we're considering season 1, and then I
Okay.
would have to say, I mean, this was a 20-minute explanation of just trying to say.
No,
then,
you know what? You explained it to me because I didn't know that.
But that's
I
the
was
thing.
interested in that.
Like The Wire, and I don't know if you guys have watched that or not, but there is a point, and every single person I have talked to about that television show that has seen it and therefore loves it, it takes until the 4th episode for that to happen. You watch the first 3 episodes, like, yeah, it's an HBO procedural drama. It's kind of like Law and Order, but there's boobs and swearing.
Yeah.
And then the 4th episode happens, and it all traces down to one scene, which we don't need to go into here. I'm just saying that
Okay.
there is a point.
Don't,
where
because I haven't seen it. I am going to
there's a
watch
point
it. It's
where
like
you just go, oh,
second or third in line right now on my list.
my God. And it just goes from there. And I'm wondering at what point is it going to happen with this show?
So next week we're gonna, or next week. I always say next week. I guess if
Next episode.
we don't even know how we're releasing them
The-
yet, but next episode of the podcast we will be doing episode 3, which also is a good episode because that, spoiler alert, Fry and Bender become roommates finally in that episode.
So then you introduce that whole Odd Couple vibe to it.
and their best bud vibe. Like that's Fry and
And you get to
Bender
see how
have
a
that.
robot lives, which is great.
it's not a documentary.
Oh,
I think,
guys, really?
I think
Yeah,
for
no,
me,
this show is actually there is a documentary about the show that explains how a lot of people fall into that trap watching this.
I think for me, part of it now is that I have Aqua Teen Hunger Force in my head as sort of a, you
That
know what I mean?
roommate thing?
Which was, they're very, very different shows. But at the same time, there's, and
Bender kind of is
Bender and
Master
Master
Shake, you know, yeah.
Shake and Fry and Meatwad, Leela and Frylock. But,
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
all, you know, there's a
When you have the 3 core characters, there's the leader, the dumb
There's the
one,
Mo, the
and the
Curly,
antagonist.
and the Larry.
Yeah, exactly. And that's
I mean, that has to be some type
That's
of
what it all goes
actual-
back
formula.
to. And I just realized that right now. It's like Fry is Curly, Leela is Mo, and I guess Bender would be the Larry, but I think Larry in the Three Stooges was actually sort of the soft-spoken one.
Yeah.
Mr. Smith or Dr. Smith. Dr. Smith from Lost in Space. But there wasn't a Dr. Smith on Gilligan's Island. You had Fry was Gilligan. I guess the skipper was the leader or the professor. I would have been Leela. And then everybody else, nobody was Bender. There was no Bender on. I mean, at times, like, the Howls were kind of dickheads. Jinder was kind of a dick sometimes.
I think you needed to get past. Now we're getting into talk show or sitcom
All right.
theory.
Go ahead. Finish
but-
what you're going to say, and then I have to say something.
You know, there was a shift probably around the time of The Simpsons where you could actually have a character who was an out-and-out asshole. Where you would have characters that were kind of prissy or difficult to deal with. But there were not.
You had the not gay, but everyone knew he was gay neighbor,
confirmed
or uncle
bachelors. I think the most distasteful.
Three's Company, Larry. He was kind of the dick, but he wasn't.
He was just slimy.
Yeah, he was just.
I mean, I think like the closest I can
Lenny and
think of
Squiggy,
is
kind of slimy, but not bad.
But
guys.
they were dumb. They weren't threatening. They were just weird. Like Danny DeVito on Taxi.
Yeah, he was
sort of
just a huge asshole, and it was part of his charm, and it was funny.
Yeah, that was kind
Did
of
Cheers
an archetype.
have an antagonist? Carla, kind of.
No,
but you liked her, though.
Carla was sassy.
She was just she was sassy. All right, you're right. Okay,
you're comparing cartoon sitcoms to live action.
That's the base
sitcoms,
for this. Is
and
they're trying to do that, but in space with animated aliens and robots. And
cartoons
stuff,
in general, they can get away and do a lot more than they could with live action real people.
It's not the people and the actions. It's the characters. It's archetypes.
The Simpsons.
I'm sure in
exactly.
screenwriting classes they probably teach whole lessons about how there is like that basis for Three Stooges is like that's a good example where it's like these are the type of characters. I think I said last time about how there's the set body types for different characters in cartoons that if you want this character to come off as this way, this is how you draw them, this is what you features you have. It's very interesting because as we watch all these episodes and just everything, comparing it to everything else we've seen, plus the 17 years that we've had of TV from when this started, like how much...
Well, now you have, It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia has been on for like 11 or 12 years now. So that's coming 5 years into Futurama.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone on that show is an asshole.
Everyone on that show is the bad guy.
But that's kind of that show's more cartoon than Futurama is sometimes.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, like Charlie Kelly is maybe the most realistic presentation of a Fry type. I mean, actually, I'd like to see Charlie Day play Fry in a live action Futurama.
A person who's kind of functioning and still alive, but is just like the dumbest person. Yeah, I missed that show.
You could
I
put
didn't watch
every
the last,
character
4 seasons or whatever but I
from
love
It's
that
Always
show.
Sunny and into a live action Futurama show, like movie or TV show that you could put character for every character. We should do that sometimes.
I got to ask you guys because I have an opinion about this and I want to know yours, but not really. I'm just being polite. I just want to tell you mine, but then you guys can go ahead if you want. I feel like this episode is kind of like how you said earlier that this was like pilot part 2. Mm-hmm. Let's pretend I said that because it's a pretty good idea.
So as
we can edit
saying,
that in, right? Basically, what I'm trying to say is this episode. There's that idea that Fry had in the first one where you're seeing the future through this person, this caveman, proto human, this simple person is seeing all this stuff to him that's so great.
He experiences 1,000 years of change in effectively a matter of seconds, but when it happens incrementally, you get desensitized to it.
that theme is there, and it's another. And they do hit this a lot throughout the series. Like they set that up in the first episode. That's what this is about. It's this guy. It's Hitchhiker's Guide. It's this regular Joe who's in this crazy other world or whatever, and
he winds up in the future. With a whole bunch of crazy stuff going on.
But you know how in the first one there was he ended up getting the same job he had before,
right?
But it was his perspective, and that's what this was about too. It was the perspective thing, and except in this one, he had his childlike wonder. He's the and he was able to share that perspective with Leela, who hadn't seen it until the end of the episode when they had their moment, that separates that show from like a Family Guy or something,
right,
where they they keep a good storyline and have a point to it or whatever, and you have that in between all the Bender sleeping with other robot daughters and bungalows and stuff. You have that little moment where they're looking at the when he gives up on his he gives up on his idea.
Lunar,
she's like, "This is stupid. Life is boring, whatever." And then she finally sees it through his eyes when they're like you said, when they're looking at the Earth from the moon. And that's it. That's what I took away from it. It's just another episode about perspective and about how much you can enjoy life if you see it a certain way, or if someone can alter your perspective.
He tends to do that a lot.
Alter your perception.
He ends up becoming almost that innocent view of certain things that other people don't have because of the life and the evolution of everything that they've already endured.
Because you get desensitized by incremental change. Like we have how many devices on the table right now?
Right, exactly.
That 10 years ago
kill people.
10 years ago.
Mean those devices?
I got my first iPhone maybe 9 years ago, something like that, and it was like life changing because I could take that and get on a plane and go to a city and get anywhere I needed to go with all the information I would ever need available in the palm of my hand. I mean, effectively, it was the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Yeah, it was the whatever you call it.
And now there's
I only read that once.
3 of those, a couple other supplemental devices, and the computer that we're recording this on. All of them have that power and so much more. And like this laptop is close to 10 years old, and it's still doing that. And it's so passé now. Like my daughter does not compute any of that stuff not being around. She doesn't even understand commercials. And that kind of stuff, like all she gets is annoyed. Like when she watches a live TV feed, she's like, I want the cartoon, and you do lose that. And it happens. It's that Louis C.K. airplane bit.
Can I ask you why your daughter is such a brat?
Poor parenting.
It's funny. Like, think about Futurama. It came out 17 years ago, the first season. If you could have come back to 17, like if it was made now, how much different the jokes and the technology would be versus it was
what'll
when
be
it
really
came
good
out.
When we get to the internet episode,
and that's why
that's a perfect example of what we're
we can keep talking. And I think this should be a recurring thing that we do on this podcast, talking about how the technology and all the jokes in there,
absolutely,
versus how we view it and how the
where
technology
we are
now in this place, and how people did, like, a lot of jokes for younger people just wouldn't transfer over because they're like, I don't know what that means.
Because it's not just the pop culture references, but the technology references. You're right. Like that's it's definitely.
We should probably wrap this up, and because I want to go watch the next episode already now.
Oh, real quick, you can find me on Twitter at the letter R, the letter HORCHY at rhorchy. You can find the Twitter page for our podcast and our Facebook and the Instagram.
Yes,
are they all the same?
All at Slurmcast Pod.
Yes. Goodbye.
We'll see you on the next episode.
We'll see you on the next episode.